Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. Thomas Paine, Common Sense. Okay, good morning everybody, or should I say late afternoon. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And today, we're returning to the American Revolution. Dawn of liberty over here for us, right? So, last time we kind of talked about Bacon's rebellion and how even before the actual revolution there were the simmering cinders of social discontent in early American history. And I'm going to highlight one particular movement, the North Carolina farmers that organized as the Regulators, who were active from 1766 to 1771, about 10 to 5 years prior to the actual revolution. Now, the officials claimed that these guys were an absolute insurrection of a dangerous tendency that has broken out in Orange County. So this was a relatively large group. It shouldn't be too surprising. I mean, like, the country does actually declare independence not too far from here. But if we look at like some of the Regulators' words, it's actually pretty interesting. They said that they were standing up because of the unequal chances the poor and the weak have in contentions with the rich and the powerful. Which, again, this same kind of concept has shown up in every major society that I've looked at their history of. The one I know the most of off the top of my head is like Tiberius Gracchus and the battles of like the plebeians against the Roman patricians in the early Roman Republic. But it shouldn't be surprising to us that these same tendencies have played out thousands of times in human history. It's part of our humanity, right? So Bostonians would go on to riot against the Stamp Act in 1767. Now that right there is like a tax that was placed on anything that had a stamp on it. And again, goes to show us just how contentious tax setting has been ever since the days of the colonies. Now, British General Thomas Gage would report that the crowd's motivation they were driven to action by inequality. And then later in 1777, there's another huge, very well-known event that happens where the British soldiers would kill rioters at Boston in the Boston Massacre. Again, a lot of this popular resistance was being driven by impressment, which the British Crown did. Basically, it was a draft. It was like what happened whenever we had our soldiers or kids being drafted into the military for the Vietnam War. Except these people were being drafted into the British service, like for a government that they didn't even get represented by. They had no representation in. So it shouldn't be too surprising that the colonists were beginning to rebel. And it was amid these increasing social tensions that the Boston Tea Party was finally organized. Here's an event that all of us have surely heard about. Basically, some upstanding Bostonians organized a nighttime raid on the harbor, and they threw away a bunch of British tea, which was an incredibly valuable commodity at the time. Unfortunately, this made the British Parliament retaliate with something known as the Coercive Acts, which, among a bunch of other effects, they dissolved colonial government, so they took away the colonists' right to self-government. Again, it's almost like a schoolyard bully, the relationship between the British Crown and their colonies. The Sons of Liberty urged moderation, holding back from actual revolution at this time. But we start to really see a ramping up of the rhetoric being used by the colonists. The most famous pamphlet released by Thomas Paine is called Common Sense. It's the quote that I started at the beginning of this video with: "Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil." Now, what stands out to me about that is just how poignant it is in today's anybody, even today, could agree with that message, I believe. But Thomas Paine's essay does also go on to confront the economic realities of separation. Like, what would it really mean for us to if we, declared independence. And he also appealed to the colonists who had lost loved ones through impressment, the draft for like the British Navy. Really a really very well put together essay, but it was only the most popular. There were at least 400 other pamphlets that were released in the lead up, like the 10 years before the actual revolution. So this sentiment was definitely widespread, and people were using the printing press to start revolutionary dissent. Now, Thomas Paine himself descended from the so-called lower orders of England, and his primary message was aimed at the middling sort of society. And still, at this point in time in American history, I think there's this misconception that there was no conflict between, like, there was just, like, people wanted the independence, but there was a lot of debate between how strong the central government should be in 1776. I've talked about James Madison's view that, like, the Senate should be in control of everything and it should be at a group of appointed men. But Thomas Jefferson also was more democratic, and to me it seemed that pretty obvious that those who would benefit the most from empowering the government would want it to be the strongest. So the Continental Congress would go on to draft the first Constitution on the 4th of July, 1776, marking our Independence Day. And in the Declaration of Independence, they've got some very impressive language. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands, they should declare their causes. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Again, this language is appealing even to modern people, so, like, it's pretty impressive how universal their appeals are. Aristotle would say they speak to our pathos, our passions, which you really kind of need to do if you're trying to lead an event like this. And it definitely united a lot of our colonial ancestors through the Revolutionary War. But we'll go into more about the actual writing of the Constitution, the drafting of the Declaration of Independence. Again, I'm pro-freedom, but, like, my main message with this is that during the early American Revolution, the leadership of amongst our four, like, founding fathers, it was contentious. There was conflict there. And that's probably part of what it means to be human, right? And so we'll also go over the Bill of Rights in the future. So even the people who helped write the Constitution didn't think it was perfect. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been a Bill of Rights, right? Now, my takeaways for this episode is just British Parliament was asking for it. They have, like, the Stamp Acts, the Coercive Acts. They dissolved the colonial government. Like, every time the colonists tried to stand up for themselves, the Parliament would just go back at them harder. Another takeaway is that every society has leaders and followers, and maybe that's a good thing. The Sons of Liberty, the people who actually drafted the Constitution and everything, they were speaking a truth that many people believed in, but they were the ones that were speaking it out loud, Another major takeaway is that mankind has been driven by the same motivating factors since the dawn of antiquity. And finally, economic factors and taxes have always been at the forefront. For whatever reason, even in the Bible, they talk about the publicani, the Roman tax collectors. So those are very similar, obviously long-standing traits in our species history. But I'm in Nashville, and we'll be in Nashville for the upcoming, week or so. Sometime probably next Monday, I'll begin my journey northward up to Maine. Tomorrow we'll be talking about the Nicomachean Ethics again, Aristotle's work on eudaimonia, or human flourishment, how to be a happy person. Again, just to remind you guys, his Nicomachean Ethics is a practical treatise, and he's really trying to create a perfectly governable society, or like the ideal society, with his arguments. So it's an interesting read for sure. If you guys support the message, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. I am doing this for y'all. Thankful to have a friend here in Tennessee, Nashville, where I can stay for the next week as I prepare my northward journey. But it's pretty much all I've got for you guys today. As always, this is your favorite aspiring revolutionary, a wandering author, here to remind you that we are all the authors of our own lives. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality, and what are you guys doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your communities today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part. You can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, I love y'all.